Hi, everybody. This is Scott Walters, and you are with the Walters Wandering Travel Podcast. This is episode number 39, which means the next one will be 40, which means we'll have some sort of party or something. I haven't figured it out yet. So I have time, though, because I'm not sure when the next one's going up. In any event, I do have a couple of special offerings I do need to tell you about. The first one is from Norwegian Cruise Lines, and it ends today. We have buy one, get one free on airfare to anywhere you want to go to get started on your next Norwegian Cruise Line cruise. So whether you want to go to start a cruise in Florida, start from the West Coast, start from Seattle, start from Europe, wherever Norwegian Cruise Line cruises, we are having a special buy one, get one free on the airfare, and it ends today, April 30th. The other thing that ends today, April 30th, is my extra onboard credit bonus. If you book an interior or ocean view cabin, you will get an extra $100 in onboard credit from me. If you book a balcony or better, a suite or a haven suite, you will get $200 in onboard credit from me. You can use that in any way possible. And again, Norwegian is known for having all kinds of promotions, so when you get in touch with me at 845-551-225 or Scott at walterswanderingtravel.com, I'll set you up with the best possible combination of promotions that Norwegian has currently offering. So that takes care of my promotions for the day. So today we have a special guest in. Her name is Felicity Abbott, and she is here, and she's going to talk about her travel experiences in Europe and how it's gone ahead and translated to some of her writing. So first of all, thank you for coming on board the Walters Wandering Travel Podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your travels in Europe. How many times have you been, and where have you gone? Just we'll do that little snapshot first, then we'll get more into it.
Great. So when I went to college, I decided to become a French major, and I went on a study abroad for 6 weeks first. For the first time, I went to Paris. It was a blast. And then a couple of years later, I did a semester abroad in Grenoble, which is near the Swiss Alps, not to be...
The 1968 Winter Olympics.
It was fantastic.
And Peggy Fleming, yes, I remember that. That's like the first sporting event that came into my head. I'll tell you a funny story why. It's because ABC actually preempted some of their programming. They weren't live at the time because they didn't have that capability, but they preempted Saturday morning cartoons to show something, and I was a very upset 5-year-old at the time. So I remember that. I remember that vividly. But anyways, so you went to Grenoble for a whole semester, which probably was really nice, and you learned high altitude cooking and more. But go on. What other travels have you had in Europe?
Okay. And then a few years after that, as a graduate student, I went back to France for a semester in the Normandy area.
So you definitely are a francophone and a francophile, and you know your French. And well, I can fake my way through French. I can fake my way through French, but I don't say that I'm fluent anymore. So that's really nice. All right. So your first trip, 6 weeks.
6 weeks in Paris.
And then you're probably about 19 or 20 years old because you're an undergraduate in college at that time.
Yes, I was.
So tell me, give us one funny thing that happened when you were in Paris when you're a robust 19. Well, go ahead. Give us what you got.
Okay. So the first funny thing, I wasn't even there yet. This was going to be my first trip to Europe, my first time off the continent, on my own, and
right, sure,
exciting. And I got the time and date of my flight wrong. So I missed the flight with the group I was supposed to go with.
Oh my goodness gracious. And that was before cell phones could remind you, and you would have the calendar reminder and everything else. Oh my goodness.
My mom was not happy.
Mom probably was not happy when you went to the airport and no one else was there. And
I found out before I got to the airport, luckily, and then we had to call the school I was going through, and they set me up with another flight, and I had to go all by myself. Talk about, kind of being a little scared, but ultimate
Sure.
confidence builder, right? That you can overcome your mistakes.
Well, you got there in one piece, a day late perhaps,
Yes,
and then you met up with your crew that was over there studying or allegedly studying perhaps, and
allegedly studying.
well,
Yeah.
listen, I've been on enough of those school trips to know that it's supposed to be cultural exchange, but what you're exchanging isn't necessarily culture. So I know how that goes.
Well, I did. I
No,
studied.
I'm glad you kept it wholesome. That's excellent. Well, I mean, to a point.
I don't know. Well, see, my other funny story about that.
Uh huh.
So I met this nice guy on the subway,
Okay.
and we became fast friends.
Uh huh.
And it was just very interesting because he was half Chinese and half Vietnamese, which, as
Right, but speaking French, well, because of the Vietnam influence or the French influence in
right.
Vietnam, that happens more often than some people would
But
actually
that's an
think.
interesting combination because the Chinese and Vietnamese did not get along.
Oh no, 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 they really don't. But
But
obviously, a
anyway, there he
Chinese person
was.
and a Vietnamese person did get along long enough to make this person.
Yes, they did. So I became friends with him and one of my other pals from my school program. We were hanging out one night, and I don't know what we're doing now. But anyway, he lied to us and told us we missed the last subway train back to our dorm. And I was very ticked off. I was young and impetuous, and I decided that because he did this and he made us miss the last train, that he would give me a piggyback ride all the way back to my dorm. So
Wow.
I ran and I jumped on his back, but I did not remove my face, and it smashed into the back of his head, and I broke my nose.
Oh my.
Oh my!
Oh
So you
my.
see,
Well, obviously, it's a good thing there weren't cell phone cameras and stuff then.
I
But
know. Do you see? I have a French nose now. Let me show you.
well, there you go. See, that's what happens. You get that little thing going on. So there you go. So that's quite interesting.
Well, even more interesting when I went to the hospital right afterwards because I could feel the bridge just fall.
Right,
And the doctor was, of course, French.
right.
My friend, he spoke French, but he felt more comfortable speaking in Chinese to my
Okay.
other friend who was Chinese American. And so the doctor said it in French. Then he told the other girl in Chinese, and she told me in English.
Right. So
Even
sort of
though
like
I understood the guy in French.
like that Lucy episode when she was in Italy, if you recall that. I get it. I have the visual in my head. I understand.
Yeah,
Four
it was hilarious.
people and and the only thing you're worried about is please get my nose figured out. That's all. I get it. That's funny. That is good stuff. So then Grenoble for a whole semester in graduate school, that was probably more intense and more of like, you're being a student, but obviously if you're there for a whole, 4 or 5 months, it's an entirely different thing.
Oh, that was fabulous. I was living with a host family, and they were really super nice. And they made rabbit one day for supper. And they were so afraid that I wouldn't like it or I wouldn't try it because I had come to stay with them and I had brought my rabbit slippers.
Oh, no, they were worried about that. No, they were
Well,
worried about it.
Americans, they're like, oh, how can you kill a poor little rabbit? And I was like, oh, that looks yummy.
There you go. Give me that rabbit stew. Let's have at it. I'll take that. Give me seconds. I hear you. No, I get it.
And while
So,
I was there, speaking of the Olympics, they
uh-huh.
were having another Olympics close by.
Okay, in Albertville.
Yay. Yeah, in Albertville.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that I was going to go, come hella high water. I was going to go to that Olympics.
Sure.
So I made sure I got out there and got on the train and then got on the bus. You had to take this bus over this big mountain pass. It's
Well,
like
yeah, that must have been
it was
thrilling.
knowing, and you could look over the edge and see the valley below. And I'm on this bus on this like 1-lane road going up the mountain. I'm like, whoa! But I did get there in one piece and was able to watch the American hockey team beat.
Well, there you go.
Norway.
That's good. Then you can yell USA and not be told not to, because it was the Olympics after all. If you're in downtown Grenoble and you start yelling USA USA, they start looking at you funny. So those were excellent stories. Now you're a writer, so what kind of books do you write? Just so the audience knows.
Well, I write middle grade fiction. My most recent, my debut book, let me get the right spot here, is Sorry Bestie. Everybody see?
Uh-huh.
And it's about being yourself, defining yourself, and not worrying about what mean girls or bullies think. Because I was bullied as a child.
Sure.
I think just about everybody probably was.
Probably to some extent, except for the really cool kids,
Yes.
We knew who they were.
Well, girl bullying is different than boy bullying because it's not as out in the open, and usually not as physically violent, but it's still violent in what it does to your self-esteem. And in this story, the main character has lost her friends because they've gone to a different school, and now she has to face the mean girls by herself, and she doesn't know how she can do it, if she can do it, and she relies on the Lord. She prays to the Lord for help. And then when a new girl comes named Faith, she finds a new friend and then has to defend her against the bully. So that's where she plucks up her courage and finds that she is able to do that.
Well, that's good. Stories like that are important. There's no doubt, because we have too many people that take advantage of others for no good reason. So I really appreciate that. Now, did you use any of your experience traveling in Europe to write your books, or do you sort of leave that off to the side and compartmentalize?
Well, I haven't used any of my travels yet in any books. That's not to say that I won't.
Because obviously you do. There are tales to tell, and obviously, and then you can also have, and there's also that sense of authenticity because you've been there. You actually know some of the local geography, some of the local stuff, so you can add some descriptive stuff that otherwise wouldn't other people wouldn't know. My mother's a writer, and so she tends to do a lot of research when she does things that are set in other places, because you want to get it right. So I understand that.
I did do some research as to some of the plot lines, because I use To Kill a Mockingbird as a major subplot in the book.
Well, there you go. That's worthy of subplot. There's no doubt. That's one of the greatest books and movie pictures of all time. Now, I understand you actually met your husband in France.
Yes, I did. That second semester when we were in Grenoble, not to be confused with Chernobyl, in
Right, we understand that.
A lot of people want to do that. So in Grenoble, I met my husband Jason, and we're still together.
You're still together, and he made the move to the States without much complaint.
Well, actually, he's American too, so that's
so we were on his own exchange program. Okay, so you weren't meeting some French guy. You met some American guy, because we understand the basic pool of Americans in Grenoble is generally very small. So it's one of those cases where you were all part of some classwork kind of thing, or you're hanging out at the local Americanized joint, and there you go.
Well, actually, we're very international. It's so funny. Well, in a way, he was eating at the local Spanish restaurant in France, and I happened to show up, and he's, "Oh, come, sit down with me," and I did, and the rest is history.
There you go. How long have you been married to him?
Oh, I have to think about. You want me to do math? What's with that? Let me see.
I'm sorry.
I don't know, at least 20 years.
There you go. There you have it. Me and
You
my
wouldn't
wife,
say that, Diane.
my wife and I are celebrating 25 years of marriage.
Oh,
Probably,
excellent.
probably about 18 of it happy, coming up in October.
I don't know if you should.
Well, the way I see it is, you know, it's a happy marriage for at least a third of the time because that's when you're asleep. So, the rest of it.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying, when you think about it. But anyways, so you obviously are an author. Do you have some kind of a website or anything we can promote for your authorship or?
Yes, of course. It's HTTT. Oh well, that's too many T's. HTTPS.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Right.
Felicity Abbott with 2 T's and 2 B's. Dot Wix site.
All right. WIXSITE.
Wix.com. Wait, Wix.com.
Wix.com. Sure. So it's
/ my
Felicity
site.
Abbott. Right. Okay. So there
There
you
we
go.
go. I finally got it.
And if you
And
go
you
to
can
Uncle
find me on
Google,
Goodreads. I'm on
you can find her on
Goodreads.
Goodreads. You can find her from Uncle Google. You can find her there, and
Yes.
she's gonna write the great American novel for 14-year-olds, which is great because it's a marketplace that certainly needs to be reading. There's no doubt. I'm the parent of 3 teenagers, so I can live that reality.
Well,
Oh,
check
yeah.
out Sorry Bestie because you might need it.
Yeah, well, I might need it
I
too.
hope
But
not.
yeah, you never know. Although thankfully, I think my kids are pretty well adjusted, and they tend to speak their
See,
mind.
that's the thing.
Or at least they speak their mind to me.
It's not. The problem is not your kids. It's the kids that bully your kids.
That's true. It's always the other person. Just like when you're driving. I hear you.
So you have to know how to handle.
No, it's true. There's so many variables and there's so many personalities. Well, Felicity, I really appreciate the time you spent with me today talking about Paris, Grenoble, and your writing. I
I
think
have plenty more stories if you want.
well. No, we'll save those for another time. When as you come out with new book material, we'll bring you back. So
I just want to leave you with one quick thing. A picture
sure.
of my younger self that I found when I went to the Mont Saint Michel. Can you see?
Oh yes, there you go. Mont Saint Michel. Just good luck getting there, but only at low tide. It's just like
yes, it was great.
Yeah, it's a truly stunning place. There's no doubt about it. It's on my bucket list. Well, Felicity Abbott, thank you so much for being on board with us today on the Walter's Wandering Travel podcast. And just a reminder, NCL, you really have to hop on this today. It is time sensitive. Plus, also listen, summer travel is really kind of crazy this year because a lot of the places you love are at reduced capacities. So you have to really get in there early. So get in touch to start wandering. This is the Walters Wandering Travel Podcast. My name is Scott Walters. I thank you so much for being on board. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and we'll catch you next time.